I smell tears before they fall. That's what you humans never understand about dogs like me. We know you're breaking before you do. We feel the shift in your breathing, the change in your heartbeat, the bitter scent fear leaves on your skin. We see the cracks in your perfect facades because we look with hearts, not eyes. My name is Buddy, and I've been the Patterson family's silent witness for 12 years. I've watched love bloom, wither and bloom again. I've seen hearts shatter and heal. And I've learned truths about human love that you spend lifetimes trying to understand. The hardest truth? Love isn't what you think it is. David and Linda brought me home on a Tuesday that smelled like hope and terror. They were 25, newly married, playing house with nervous laughter and too tight smiles. They thought I was practice for real responsibility. A trial run before babies. But I saw what they couldn't. They were drowning. David's hands shook every morning as he knotted his tie, the weight of being a provider, crushing his boyish dreams. Linda stood at the bathroom mirror each dawn, applying makeup like armor, whispering affirmations she didn't believe. They were children pretending to be adults, terrified of disappointing everyone, including each other. I became their bridge to honesty. When David cried into my fur after his third job rejection, I absorbed his shame without judgment. God, Buddy, what if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough to take care of her? She believes in me so much, and I'm terrified I'm going to let her down. What if she realizes she married the wrong guy? When Linda sobbed through her first miscarriage, the one they never told anyone about, I was the only witness to her grief. I can't tell David how relieved I am, Buddy. Isn't that horrible? I should be devastated, but I'm not ready. I don't know how to be a mother. What if I'm broken inside? But late at night, when they thought I was asleep, I listened to their whispered conversations about second chances and whether they were meant to be parents. David reassured Linda that their love was enough, even if children never came. Linda worried that her body was failing them both. Dogs don't lie, so humans tell us their truths. But humans also reveal themselves when they think no one is listening. Those early years taught me the first lesson. Love begins with seeing someone's brokenness and choosing to stay anyway. Sophie's birth changed the molecular structure of our house. Suddenly, every breath we took was measured against this tiny human's needs. I watched David hold his daughter for the first time, his face cracking open with a love so fierce it scared him. Linda transformed from woman to mother in an instant, raw, powerful, undone by the enormity of it. But here's what no one talks about. Babies don't just bring joy. They bring terror. I felt David's panic at 3 a.m. when Sophie wouldn't stop crying. Buddy, what if I break her? She's so small, and she won't stop crying no matter what I do. Linda makes it look natural, but I feel like I'm holding a bomb that might go off. And I overheard him confessing his fears to Linda in those sleep-deprived moments. How every cry felt like failure. How he was terrified of damaging something so precious. Linda gently reminded him that babies sense fear, that he needed to trust himself as Sophie's father. When Tommy arrived 3 years later, I witnessed different conversations. Experienced parents, but overwhelmed ones. Linda confessed she felt like she was disappearing, becoming nothing more than a caretaker. David admitted they were drowning and needed help, though Linda insisted this was what they'd signed up for. David gently corrected her. They'd signed up for a family, not for drowning. I learned the second lesson. Love doesn't get easier with practice. It gets deeper, which makes everything more terrifying. Then came the night that almost broke everything. Sophie was at a sleepover, Tommy was finally asleep after 2 hours of negotiating bedtime. David and Linda sat on opposite ends of our couch, the same couch where they once couldn't keep their hands off each other, and had the conversation that marriages fear most. The air itself felt different that night. I could smell the finality in it, the way storms smell before they destroy everything in their path. My first stood on end as I watched 12 years of love teeter on the edge of collapse. I watched Linda admit she didn't know who they were anymore. The words fell like stones into still water, sending ripples of destruction through everything they'd built. David's face crumbled as he tried to insist they were parents, partners, but Linda's response cut deeper than any physical wound. They were just roommates managing chaos. When David wondered if this was simply what marriage becomes, if romance was just the beginning and this was real life, Linda's response didn't just cut through the air, it shattered it. If this is real life, I don't know if I want it. I felt David's heart stop. Literally stop. The silence that followed was so profound I could hear the house settling, the refrigerator humming, the sound of a family dying. But it was what Linda said next that nearly destroyed me. I watched this woman I'd loved for 8 years disappear before my eyes as she explained she didn't know how to be married to David anymore. Didn't know how to be herself. She had become nothing but Sophie's mom, Tommy's mom, the woman who handled dry cleaning, never Linda. When David whispered that she was still Linda, her challenge pierced the darkness. When had he last asked what she actually thought about? Not schedules, not dinner plans, but her real thoughts, her dreams, her fears? David's silence was his confession. The moment Linda announced she was sleeping in the guest room, I felt our family fracture. Not break, fracture. Like a windshield hit by a stone, spiderwebbing in all directions, still holding together but damaged beyond easy repair. That night, the house itself seemed to mourn. I lay in the hallway between their separate rooms, feeling like a guard watching over ruins. David didn't sleep. I heard him crying at 2 a.m., the deep, chest-heaving sobs of a man watching his life crumble. Linda lay awake too, her tears silent but persistent, soaking the pillow she clutched like armor. But the real heartbreak came the next morning. Sophie appeared at breakfast with dark circles under her eyes. She'd heard everything. "Buddy," she whispered as she fed me scraps under the table. "Are they getting divorced?" Sarah's parents got divorced, and first they stopped hugging. Then her dad moved out. "I'm scared our family is breaking." Tommy sensed it too, though he couldn't name it. He clung to Linda's leg that morning with unusual desperation, and when David tried to hug him goodbye, Tommy asked, "Daddy, why do you smell sad?" Because I could smell it too. The scent of a family disintegrating. Fear has a particular odor, and it was everywhere. In David's nervous sweat, in Linda's bitter tears, in the children's confusion. Our house reeked of endings. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. I watched David and Linda transform into polite strangers, speaking only about logistics, moving around each other like they were afraid to touch. I witnessed conversations about custody arrangements, about who would keep the house, about how to tell the children that sometimes love isn't enough. But the moment that nearly killed me, the true climax of our family's near destruction, came on a Thursday evening when Linda sat at our kitchen table with divorce papers spread before her. I watched her hand shake as she held the pen, watched tears fall onto the documents, watched her whisper, "I'm sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry." David walked in at that moment. He saw the papers, saw Linda's tears, saw the official end of everything they'd built together. For a heartbeat, time stopped. I held my breath, certain this was it, the moment our family officially died. Instead, David did something that changed everything. He walked over, sat down beside Linda, and said, Before you sign those, can I ask you one question? What followed wasn't just a conversation, it was a resurrection. Before you sign those, David said, his voice barely above a whisper. Can I ask you one question? Linda looked up, tears streaming down her face, the pen still trembling in her hand. The divorce papers lay between them like a graveyard of dreams. Do you remember? David continued, sitting down slowly as if sudden movements might shatter everything. Do you remember our third date? When you made me drive 2 hours to that tiny bookstore because you heard they had a poetry section in the back? I watched Linda's face flicker with the memory. The pen stopped shaking. You spent an hour reading me terrible love poems, David said. And I thought you were insane. But then you read one that was actually beautiful. And you started crying because it reminded you of your grandmother. And I realized I wanted to spend my life learning what made you cry, what made you laugh, what made you think and dream and hope. Linda set the pen down. That woman is still in there, David whispered. The one who reads poetry and cries over beauty and has opinions about everything. I lost her somewhere between mortgages and parent-teacher conferences and trying so hard to be a good provider that I forgot to be a good husband. But she's still there, Lynn. I see her. I watched something shift in Linda's eyes. Not hope exactly, but recognition. Like someone lost in the dark, finally seeing a familiar landmark. The question is, David continued, before you sign those papers and make this official, will you let me try to find her again? Will you let me try to find us again? The silence stretched forever. I could hear my own heartbeat, the clock ticking on the wall, the sound of a family balanced on the edge of oblivion. Then Linda pushed the papers away. I don't know how, she whispered. Neither do I, David admitted. But maybe we can figure it out together. Like we used to figure everything out together. What followed wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. It was messier and more beautiful than that. It was real work. They started from scratch, like strangers learning to date again while living in the same house and raising children together. I observed them rediscovering each other in tiny increments. Saturday morning coffee dates where they talked about books and dreams instead of schedules. Honest fights where they called out each other's patterns, his defensiveness, her walls, but committed to trying again tomorrow. Conversations with Sophie and Tommy about how sometimes grown-ups have to remember how to be friends again. The transformation wasn't immediate. There were setbacks, tears, moments when I thought they might still give up. But gradually, the scent of our house changed. Fear gave way to hope. Resignation transformed into determination. The smell of a family dying became the fragrance of love choosing to live. Now, as they found their rhythm again, not perfect, but real, I watched them with the wisdom of 12 years. Just last week, I overheard David reflecting to Linda about how he'd almost thrown everything away because he thought love was supposed to be easy. Linda reminded him that nothing worthwhile is easy, but David questioned whether it should be this hard either. She suggested maybe it wasn't about easy or hard, but about worth it. When David asked if they were worth it, Linda gestured around at what they'd built, survived, and were still building. Yes, she said, they were worth it. And Linda, just yesterday morning, mused about how she used to think that needing to work at love meant they were doing it wrong. Now she believes the work is what makes it love. Anyone can feel butterflies, but choosing each other when the butterflies are gone and real life gets messy, that's love. What I've learned from watching them, love isn't a feeling, it's a choice. You choose it when your spouse snores too loudly and hasn't taken out the trash in 3 days. You choose it when passion fades to friendship, when romance gets buried under laundry and bills. Perfect families don't exist. The Pattersons aren't perfect. David still works too much sometimes. Linda still worries about everything. But they're perfect for each other. Not because they don't have problems, but because they've learned to face problems together. Children need to see real love, not perfect love. Sophie and Tommy learned that marriages take work, that parents are people with feelings, that love means fighting for each other, not avoiding conflict. Dogs see what humans miss. We see the whole picture. We notice when touches become rare, when voices get sharp, when the easy laughter fades. But we also see when love returns. In small gestures, in the way someone scent changes when they're truly happy again. Look around your dinner table tonight. See the faces that have changed and grown, the hands that have held you through everything. These people aren't perfect, but they're yours. The Pattersons taught me that families aren't built in moments of joy. They're built in moments of choice. When you're tired and overwhelmed and someone needs you anyway, and you choose to show up. When your marriage feels broken and you choose to fight for what you once had. That's what love looks like from where I sit. Not the Instagram version with perfect lighting, but real love. Messy, complicated, requiring daily tending, worth every difficult moment. I've been their witness, their comfort, their reminder that love is always worth fighting for. And as Sophie becomes the young woman she's meant to be, as Tommy discovers his own gifts, as David and Linda rediscover each other after nearly losing themselves, I know this. Love wins. Not easily, not without scars, not without requiring everything you have to give. But love wins, because love is the only thing that ever really mattered anyway. Thank you for taking this emotional journey with me and the Patterson family. Stories like these remind us that every family has its struggles, its triumphs, and its quiet moments of grace that only the closest witnesses ever see. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a story that might change how you see your own family. Because sometimes, we all need a reminder that love, messy, complicated, requiring daily choice, is always worth fighting for. What did Buddy's story teach you about your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your stories inspire the tales we tell next.